Good afternoon and welcome to the Sugar Land Development Corporation meeting with the governing body with the City of Sugar Land. I'd like to call our meeting to order. And at this time, do we have any public comment? City Secretary.
No, ma'am, no one signed up.
Okay. Move to item 4, minutes. Consideration of an action on the minutes of the June 1st, 2021 meeting.
Motion to approve.
Move to approve.
Okay, I have a motion by McCutcheon and a second by Jacobson. Can we take a vote at this time? Okay, well, I'll vote at this time, please. Raise your hand. Okay, motion passes. Item number 5, resolutions. Consideration of an action on authorization of amendment number 2 to the performance agreement between the Sugar Land Development Corporation and Texas Instruments Incorporated. We have Alba, our business development manager.
Good afternoon, everyone. I am going to present the second amendment to the performance agreement between Sugar Land Development Corporation and Texas Instruments. I would also like to recognize Ryan Davis with Texas Instruments, who is joining us through Zoom today. If I could get to the next slide, please. So Texas Instruments is a Fortune 500 global semiconductor company that designs, manufactures, tests, and sells analog and embedded processing chips. They have more than 80,000 products and help over 100,000 customers efficiently manage power, accurately sense and transmit data, and provide the core control or processing in their designs, going into markets such as industrial, automotive, personal electronics, communications equipment, and enterprise systems. In June of 2012, the city entered into a performance agreement with TI for the construction of a new 155,000 square foot research and development space. Texas Instruments officially opened its new research and development facility in the Telfair Track 5 area in July of 2014, bringing 375 jobs and $35 million in new capital investment to the city of Sugar Land. In June of 2021, the Economic Development Department was approached by TI requesting to sublease the 3rd floor of their building. As you know, the pandemic has impacted every business in a different way. With these changes, TI is looking to monetize underutilized space within their building. They do see it as a benefit to them and to the city in that we could recruit a new business that would bring additional jobs and economic impact. The company currently has a few employees in that space, but they can be moved to other floors to accommodate a new tenant. So staff does recommend approving the amendment to include sublease terms in accordance with state statute. All requirements within the agreements would remain the same, and TI would need to meet these requirements to be eligible for the performance incentives for the remainder of the compliance years within both agreements, or this agreement, I'm sorry. Are there any questions?
Questions from the board, Director Jacobson?
Albert, so do the subtenants, do those positions and those salaries count toward the satisfaction of our agreement?
They will
with
not.
TI?
They will not.
Okay, so TI is still responsible for meeting all those targets, and we get extra on top of that.
Correct.
Thank you.
Any other questions from the board?
Motion to approve. Since this is in District 4, my district.
Got a motion to approve by Director McCutcheon. Do I have a second?
Second.
I have a second by Director Ferguson. Take a vote at this time. Raise your hand. All in favor. Motion passes. Okay, item number 6, workshop. Review and discussion on the proposed fiscal year 2022 budget. Scott Butler, Director of Budget and Strategy.
All right, good afternoon. I think most of you have met Scott in person already, but since this is his first formal presentation to the SLDC, wanted to introduce him again. Scott Butler comes to us from Mesa, Arizona, and has been with us for now, like 3 months, I think it has been. So we have a full team behind him, ready to help answer questions as well, just recognizing he is still learning everything, but he's doing a great job. And welcome, and we look forward to your presentation.
Thank you. It's good to be here with you all. I'm going to say something wrong, so that's why the backup is here, so they can clarify where I missed up. All right, so just quickly, as far as the agenda for this item, we're going to review the current status of the fiscal year 21 budget and the projections. We'll look at the budget for next fiscal year. We're going to look at our 5-year forecast assumptions, and then we'll quickly highlight the capital projects that are included in this budget. Next slide. Okay, thank you. So first on revenues. Revenues are, as we've talked about in several meetings, they are starting to show some rebound and some recovery. And so you see the projections are above what the original budget was. To give you some perspective, right now we are showing approximately 24% above budget for where we were scheduled to be this time. So revenue through July, we are about 24% above the budget. It includes the revenue from the TERS 1, which is the town square development, if I understand that correctly. And then interest income, we are seeing the rates dip as a result of the current economic conditions. So you'll see that included in the forecast is just a slight decline in the revenue that's anticipated as far as interest income. Next slide, please. On the expenditure side, we are showing these as that they'll end as budgeted, with the exception of the funding for economic development incentives. The incentives are going through as scheduled at the $690,000, and so there will be $1 million that'll drop to the bottom line. You see it there. So a reduction in expenditures. Just as a reminder, the main expenditures here are in that debt service line. It includes the design and construction of Smart Financial Center, and then the infrastructure associated with Town Square. Next slide. So this is just a summary. The revenues are higher, expenditures are projected to be lower, and so therefore it contributes to a positive net income. The original budget showed that we were going to dip into fund balance, but again, because of the variation in the revenue and then reduced expenditures, we have a positive net income. That contributes to a higher ending fund balance, and as you see there at the bottom, the policy requirement is $830,000, and so we are nearly $6 million above the policy requirement. Next slide. Looking at fiscal year 22 revenues, the revenues are based on the FY21 recurring revenues. That's where we start as the baseline budget. It includes additional revenue that's anticipated from the recovery. It's the targeted additions that are resulting from facilities that were closed during the pandemic. I believe there's Smart Financial Center and then a theater, so we're anticipating additional revenue from those, as well as anticipated growth in food and entertainment. And then obviously we've seen some recovery, and so we anticipate that for the last few months of the current fiscal year that recovery will continue, and so we're confident that the revenues will grow appropriately. And then you can see that we have that projected decline as far as the interest income is concerned. On the expenditure side, next slide for me, please. I think it's stable based on historically the way that the budget has been programmed. It includes $1.7 million for incentives. It includes $2 million for reserve for opportunities. It's a way for us to have the funding appropriated to be able to respond to opportunities that come our way. And then you can see that the debt service is programmed. That's the largest expenditure that accounts for those improvements that I outlined previously. Next slide. As far as the summary is concerned, based on the way that we program revenues and expenditures, we do show that we're going to dip slightly into existing fund balance. And then with the accrued sales tax and accounting for a debt service reserve, it gives us the ending fund balance of $5.72 million. You can see the comparison to where the policy requirement is. Just as a reminder, the policy requirement for this fund is 15% of budgeted sales tax revenue. And so you can see how we're outlined to be over the policy at the end of next year. Now to just review the forecast. So the long-range assumptions, in terms of financial management policy, the direction that we have is to use the February 2021. However, given that there's some continued uncertainty, we want to be careful of what the CPI is showing. Jennifer May talked about this a little bit in the budget filing presentation, that the CPI is showing a jump. We want to be a little bit more conservative on the revenue side, so we have a 1.5% growth programmed in on the revenue side. It includes, in fiscal year 24, a reset to the revenue for fiscal year 19. What that allows us to do is to avoid any compounding in growth in the revenue. It allows us to reset. And then in the outer years, 25 and 26, we return in terms of the financial management policy. It outlines that we program 3% growth, and in the out years, it allows us to be conservative and then program the remaining years based on financial policy. Included in the forecast is a total of $10.5 million for reserve for opportunities, again, to respond, give us the flexibility to respond to emerging opportunities. In fiscal year 23, there are 2 capital projects that are programmed. It includes the Owens Road Mobility Project, as well as the Brazos River Turnaround that's associated with the University of Houston at Sugar Land campus. And then incentives, that's a flat amount that's programmed across the forecast at $1.7 million throughout. Next slide. So here you see just a brief snapshot of what the forecast looks like. The things I'll draw attention to in fiscal year 23, we show an increase in expenditures due to those 2 capital projects that I outlined previously. And then you can see that the impact of those projects, the impact that it has to the ending fund balance. However, it remains above policy. And then the bond coverage ratio, you can see that towards the out years, there is more funding capacity available in the bond coverage ratio, which will allow us to respond to emerging opportunities in the out years. Next slide. Again, these are the 2 projects that are planned within the forecast period, Owens Road and the Brazos River Turnaround. Any questions on the current budget or the forecast?
Do we have any questions from the board? Nashad?
Scott, the $2 million that you said is extra through 2021, is that number through June? Or is that projected through the year 2021?
Tell me again, I'm sorry.
So you mentioned there's $2 million extra for over budget.
Oh,
Right, in 2021. My question is it through June or July, or is that projected with the revenues through the end of fiscal year 2021?
that's projected through the end of the fiscal year.
Okay. And on your presentation, you had $11 million, I think, for the beginning of 2022. Where does the $2 million, I guess my question is, where does the $2 million go, so we know that it gets accounted for?
It falls to the fund balance, and so it would be available at the start of the next fiscal year.
Perfect, thank you.
Any more questions from the board? Carol?
Yeah, so you referenced the Brazos River turnaround, but you're actually talking about the road that's on UH's property that's going to be done in lieu of the Brazos River turnaround being reinstated, correct?
I believe that's correct.
Okay. Okay, and then also, you mentioned that there'd be 1.5% growth in fiscal year '23, and then we do a reset to the FY19 actuals and FY24. So what's the, dollar differential or the percent differential then between the FY23 and the FY24?
I was going to say, I think Jennifer Brown just answered. No, you haven't.
It's about 130,000.
130,000.
130,000, okay, thank you.
Okay, any more questions from the board? Okay, well, thank you, Scott, for your presentation.
Awesome, thank you.
Item number 7, Director's Report. Elizabeth Huff, Director of Economic Development.
Good afternoon. I have a quick update for you. Lead generation is up. We are seeing an immense increase in activity. Our industrial activity has stayed strong throughout COVID, but we are definitely seeing a larger uptick in our office and other type of projects, and even some experiential type of retail as well. And then the business recruitment activations and missions have restarted, and so we will be joining and start traveling again with some of our different partners to go out and tell the Sugar Land story out throughout the country. So that's all I've got. Thank you for your time, and I hope you have a good evening.
Any other questions or comments from the board? Okay, thank you. Do I have a motion to adjourn? Okay, got a motion to adjourn by Director McCutcheon. Meeting is closed. Thank you.